Watch this story in full. Subscribe, comment and like my channel, Green Mythology, for mythology and history. Gateway 2, The Captivating Worlds of Ancient Myth. Now watch the story in full please. The Hunger in the Skin. The reservation lay under a sky bruised with twilight, the kind of deep purple that swallowed the last blush of orange on the horizon. For young Cale, the approaching darkness always brought a knot of unease to his stomach. It wasn't just the fading light, it was the old stories, the hushed warnings, the fear that clung to the edges of their world like the scent of coming rain. His grandmother, Nana Alara, a woman whose eyes held the wisdom and sorrow of generations, had always been particularly wary after sundown. Her hogan, usually a place of warmth and laughter, became a sanctuary of locked doors and low burning fires. Tonight, the air felt heavier than usual. A lone coyote howled in the distance, a mournful sound that seemed to snake into the very bones of the land. Nana Alara flinched, her hand going to the protection pouch she always wore around her neck. "Close the shutters tight, Cale," she murmured, her voice a low rasp. "And bar the door. Do not look outside until the sun is high." Cale, though 18 and feeling the restless stirrings of youth, never questioned his grandmother's commands when the subject of the Inaldlushi arose. Skin Walkers. The name itself was a tight coil of dread in his chest. Malevolent witches who shed their human skin to run on all fours, taking the forms of predatory beasts, coyotes, wolves, bears, to inflict harm, spread sickness, and sow discord. They were the antithesis of everything sacred, beings who had gained the twisted power through the most heinous of acts, often the murder of a close relative, a desecration of blood and bond. Tonight, the coyote's howl seemed to linger, to circle the hogan like a hungry spirit. Cale did as he was told, the heavy wooden shutters thudding shut, plunging the interior into a dimness lit only by the flickering firelight. He could hear the rapid beat of his own heart in the sudden quiet. "Nana," he finally said, the word barely a whisper, "do you think?" "Do not speak their name unnecessarily," she interrupted, her eyes sharp with warning. "To speak of them is to invite their attention. They are drawn to fear, to doubt, to the unraveling of our thoughts." He fell silent, the unspoken question hanging in the air between them, was one near. The night stretched on, a taut string of silence punctuated by the crackling fire and the occasional, unnervingly close, animal sound that didn't quite sound right. A huff that was too deep for a coyote, a scuttling that was too heavy for a rodent. Cale found himself watching the shadows, imagining distorted shapes lurking just beyond the walls. Days turned into a week, and the feeling of being watched intensified. Livestock on neighboring ranches disappeared or were found mutilated in gruesome ways, bearing the hallmarks of something more sinister than a wild animal attack. Whispers circulated through the community, hushed conversations in the trading post, worried glances exchanged during tribal gatherings. The fear was a tangible thing, a suffocating blanket that settled over the reservation. One afternoon, while helping his uncle mend a fence line far from the hogan, Cale saw it. A large wolf, its coat unusually dark, watching them from the crest of a nearby ridge. Wolves weren't common in this area, not anymore, and there was something in its posture, in the intelligent, unsettling stillness of its gaze, that sent a shiver down Cale's spine. He remembered Nana Alara's words about their eyes. In animal form, a skin walker's eyes would glow red when caught in a light. He had no light, but the sheer intensity of this creature's stare felt like a physical pressure. He nudged his uncle, a quiet, weathered man named Silas, and subtly gestured towards the ridge. Silas followed his gaze, and his easygoing demeanor vanished, replaced by a grim tension. "Don't stare," Silas said, his voice low and steady, a stark contrast to Cale's inner turmoil. "Don't acknowledge it." They worked in silence, the presence on the ridge a heavy weight on their shoulders. When they finally packed up the tools and headed back, the wolf was gone. But the feeling of being observed lingered, a prickling on the back of Cale's neck. That night, the sounds around the hogan were bolder, more aggressive. Scratching at the walls, Low growls that seemed to vibrate through the very earth, and then, the chilling sound of human-like laughter mixed with an animal's snarl just outside the door. Nana Alara began to chant, her voice rising and falling in a complex rhythm, a song of protection and defiance. Kale clutched a piece of white ash wood, a small protection charm she had given him. The malevolent presence outside seemed to react to the chanting, the sounds escalating in intensity. Something heavy slammed against the door, making the ancient wood groan. Kale's heart hammered against his ribs. He imagined the creature outside, a twisted mockery of nature, its eyes burning with unnatural light. Suddenly, the sounds ceased. The silence that followed was almost more terrifying than the noise. It felt like a predator waiting, listening. "They try to wear you down," Nana Alara said, her voice strained but resolute. "To break your spirit. Fear is their weapon." The attacks continued sporadically over the next few days. Strange tracks appeared around the hogan in the morning, some animal, some disturbingly human-like, sometimes a confusing mix of both. Objects were found moved or disturbed. A sense of unease permeated everything. Kale knew they couldn't live like this, cowering in fear. He had heard the stories of how powerful medicine people could confront skinwalkers, how certain ancient knowledge held the key to their defeat. He spoke to Nana Alara about seeking help from a respected elder known for his knowledge of the old ways, a man named Deshna. Nana Alara was hesitant. The path of confronting a skinwalker was fraught with peril, and involving others put them at risk. But the fear in Kale's eyes, the growing weariness in her own heart, finally swayed her. Finding Deshna was a journey in itself, a trek deep into the quieter, less traveled parts of the reservation. They found him in a small, humble dwelling, his face a roadmap of time and knowledge. He listened patiently to their story, his eyes calm and knowing. "The Yinaldlu shear a sickness upon the land," Deshna said, his voice resonating with quiet authority. "They're born of broken taboos and corrupted power. To face one is to face the darkness within ourselves and our community." He explained that white ash, traditionally used in certain ceremonies, held a power against them. Bullets dipped in white ash were said to be one of the few things that could truly harm a skinwalker in their animal form. He also spoke of the importance of strong spirit, of community, and of the ancient ceremonies that could fortify them against such malevolence. Deshna agreed to help. He returned with them to the hogan, bringing with him bundles of herbs, sacred stones, and a quiet strength that seemed to push back the encroaching fear. He spent hours with Nana Alara, their voices a low murmur as they discussed traditions, protections, and the specific signs they had witnessed. As the next night fell, a different kind of energy filled the hogan. Deshna began a protective ceremony, his chanting deeper and more complex than Nana Alara's. The air grew thick with the scent of burning herbs. Kale and Nana Alara sat with him, their hands clasped, drawing strength from his presence and the power of the ancient. Ritual. Outside, the malevolent sounds returned, louder and more furious than before. The skinwalker knew it was being challenged. Howls and snarls became roars and screeches, sounds that curdled the blood. The hogan shook under unseen blows. But the chanting continued, a shield against the onslaught. Through a crack in the shutters, Kale caught a glimpse of movement, a large, dark shape, shifting and indistinct in the moonless night. He saw eyes, low to the ground, burning with that terrifying red glow. A wolf, but too large, its movements jerky and unnatural. Deshna handed Kale a rifle, its barrel smudged with white ash. "When it shows itself," he instructed, his voice steady amidst the chaos, "aim true. But remember, the greatest weapon is not the bullet, but the strength of your spirit and the unity of our people." The attack reached a crescendo. The door splintered inward as a massive, distorted form lunged into the hogan. It was neither fully wolf nor fully human, a horrifying hybrid with matted fur, elongated limbs, and eyes that blazed with pure hatred. Kale raised the rifle, his hands trembling, but he met the creature's gaze, and for a terrifying instant, felt a chilling presence try to worm its way into his mind. He saw flashes of darkness, of twisted rituals, of the pain and fear the skinwalker fed upon. He fought back, focusing on Nana Alara's chanting, on Deshna's calm presence, on the faces of his family and community. He thought of the land, the sacred mountains, the ancestors who had faced such darkness before. The mental assault faltered. With a surge of adrenaline, Kale fired. The rifle roared in the confined space. The creature shrieked, a sound that was both animalistic and horribly human, and staggered back, a plume of white ash clinging to its form. It turned and fled back into the darkness, its movements no longer fluid but ragged and pained. The sounds outside faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a night bird. The hogan was damaged, the air thick with the smell of fear and burnt herbs, but they were alive. In the morning, they found tracks leading away from the hogan, a trail of animal prints that slowly, disturbingly, morphed into the barefoot tracks of a human. There were spatters of dark, unnatural blood mixed with white ash. Deshna examined the tracks. "It is wounded," he said. "The ash burns them, but it will not die easily. This one is old and deeply rooted in the witchery way." The encounter changed Kale. The fear remained, a low hum beneath the surface, but it was no longer a paralyzing terror. He had faced the darkness and survived. He understood the importance of the old ways, the strength of community, and the constant vigilance required to protect against the malevolent forces that sought to disrupt the balance of their world. The skinwalker was not vanquished, only driven back. They knew it would likely return, or perhaps another would take its place. The fight against such evil was not a single battle, but a continuous struggle. But Kale had faced the hunger in the skin, and he was ready. He would learn more from Deshna, he would honor the taboos, and he would stand with his people, the collective spirit alight against the deepest of shadows. The reservation remained under the vast, often unforgiving, sky, but now, for Kale, it was also a land where the ancient battle between light and shadow, between healing and corruption, was a living, breathing reality. And he was a part of it.